Cool. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Excited to have you here. Just kind of a bit of a preamble. This is Vancouver Creative Tech, which has been hosted online for actually, Tim, I believe it's been exactly a year since the pandemic.
Wow.
So I think last March was our first online, so it'll be a long time, but we've been keeping it going last Tuesday of every month. It's a chance for creative coders, programmers, artists, designers to get together and kind of share creative coding, creative technology, and also installation art, which people are working on. And that's perfect because our speaker tonight, Samm Cooper, is a longtime member and a fabulous creative coder who has some cool stuff to share with us. Tim, is there anything you want to mention about the meetup before we get started?
I'll grab the socials and post them in the chat. And yeah, so if you want to keep in touch, yeah, like Darren mentioned, we're usually last Tuesday of every month. And you can hop on the Slack or the YouTube if you want to watch this again.
Yeah.
And then there is also a tip jar, just kind of to help us cover costs for like Zoom and Meetup and stuff. You know, if you like what we do, you can toss us a couple bucks.
Yep. So you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram. We're not really active on Facebook as much. We also just started a Signal group. So for those that value privacy, you can join our Signal. So we'll try to keep all those links available for everyone too. And most of our links are available from our Meetup page. So you can go there. Cool. So without further ado, I think let's get started. Samm Cooper, take it away.
Greetings from a delightful future. I'm Samm Cooper, and I'm here to talk about my project, or actually an Hfour project, Tetra, of which I have a subset behind me. Just before we get started, I want to say I got a bunch of screens in front of me. I know when they talk about public speaking, they say, look at your audience. You guys are actually on this screen right here, but I'm coming to you from this camera right here, as well as I'll be switching through a few visual references as we go. Before we get too far, I want to thank everyone for coming and give a big thanks to Tim and Darren for organizing this meetup. As Darren was saying, it's been a year of offline meetups, but I think probably 6 years of really solid meetups, a great bunch of people, and a community that's only grown since we've gone online. Also want to thank Ben and Stuart from Hfour. These are the guys that are, you know, I'm blessed. I just do creative, fun things with code all day, but you know, these are the guys that are in the trenches, making deals, selling projects, and, you know, making it possible for me to just enjoy the hell out of my job. So I don't think those guys are online right now, but if they're coming through in the ether or looking this after, thank you to Stuart Ward and my brother, Ben Cooper. So Tetra is a series of, or I should say a template for Luminous structures. We've been we've been building Tetra for about 2 years now, and just had our dozenth installation. It's been a labor of love for us, and a really crazy example of some open source code that has really taken on a life of its own. So as part of the presentation, I want to share a bit of a demo with you. I just dropped a link in the chat. you should be able to log in. Actually, not even log in. Just go to that very sketchy looking URL. Promise no spyware, and take control of this crazy thing behind me. And I'm going to be using this to show a bunch of features. And yeah, I find it adds a bit of energy to demos to have a bunch of random internet hooligans, go in and change all my stuff. So please feel free to log into the demo, and if it stops working for any reason, just reload. So Tetra started with an idea. I think probably would have been late or mid 2018 with Hfour. We'd made quite a few very successful pieces of light art, and we're looking for the next thing. And what we found, Ben and I, was that we built structures that had everything we built had a very fixed geometry to it, in that we'd make a case and make an LED structure, but the geometry was always part of the thing. It was always a fixed form factor, and we wanted to build something where it was more of a template than a given piece, something where we could make up the geometry as we went along. So we got these really great, we found a line on these really great LED tubes, DMX tubes, and started contemplating a system of tetrahedral luminous LED art. We started by ordering a test batch of 6 of these tubes. You can see the tubes on screen are right behind me. Put them together, did an initial layup with Mad Mapper and a custom LED control. By the way, if I'm going too fast or there's any questions during this presentation, please drop them in the chat. I'm watching that there, or speak up over the audio. I know I can meander sometimes, and if I miss anything along the way, please let me know. So yeah, we after we tried a test batch of these LEDs, we ordered 100 tubes and a DMX controller from a company called LED Light Color out of Shenzhen. I should mention now, this hardware has been absolutely rock solid for us. We have intentionally destroyed one of these LED tubes at one point, but we have not had one failure of these tubes in the field in 2 years and a dozen installations. So LED light color certainly deserves your business if you're looking for any kind of LED product, actually. The shape that we targeted right from the beginning was a tetrahedron, because it's something that's a bit rare in we'd never seen anything anything like this before, and thought, well, if we haven't seen it, it's probably unique enough for other people. It also has the advantage that it's incredibly rigid. Our Buckminster Fuller spoke a lot about tetrahedral shapes, and because of the fact they're based around 4 triangles, they have an inherent rigidity to them that makes them able to be structurally sound. So we, from the inception, this project was all about making structures out of light. So here, I think here's a picture of the first time we set this up down at the studio. Took some pictures. I'll get to that in a second. And at this point, I'm gonna, we kept getting. At this point, we put the thing in the field. Let me try to find a picture. The first time we showed Tetra. Yes, this was the second the second. Sorry, the audio for this is blaring right in my ears. This is the first time we set up. We actually set up the Tetra for a live gig. This was at an Eat Art party, I think in early 2019. They Eat Art's an organization that always throws great parties, and certainly a place that's appreciative of new tech and crazy light art. And then the day after, which was a bit more difficult, we set up in a hotel in Surrey for a conference on public art. There's me looking quite a bit scruffier back in the day. And after that, we just kept getting going bigger and bigger. And one interesting thing about Tetra is that I don't think in 2 years we have ever done the same installation or the same configuration twice. One thing we found very early on is that people really like to be inside the art, and this is something we've pushed a lot. Is that sculpture isn't something you see from the outside, but rather something that you can walk inside and be a part of, and that's been a real continuous point in the Tetra to not just create not create just something people look at, but something that people interact with. Jim, this is at I think this is at down at Jim Diva Plaza, the Lumiere Festival and the Pride Society in Vancouver have always been big supporters of our work at Hfour. People taking selfies. This was the biggest installation or the tallest we've ever made. We have we call this one, I think internally the name is the TET 3B. Yeah, Mimi, that is Davy and Butte. We've done over the years probably about 10 installations there. It's a space that's really conducive to public art, and a really good community down there. You know, one thing that always stands out about doing installations at Jim Diva Plaza on Davie Street is like, no, I know this is going all over the internet, but no one say anything. We don't have the best security on our installations a lot of the time, and we have had almost no hooliganism at Jim Diva Plaza. It's been we always look at the worst case. What if someone uses our sculpture as a ladder? What's going to happen? But because it is, you know, it can be sort of a crackheaded neighborhood at some point, but for one reason or another, we've never had any troubles down there. Including Tetra, I think we've set up installations at Jim Diva Plaza or across the road probably a dozen times over the last 5 or 6 years. So yeah, bigger and better. This is the future as promised by virtual reality from Lumiere last year. In this case, we got a deal on some really nice aluminum truss and built our structure off of that, and also, social distancing has changed public art somewhat. I guess I'll suffice to say that. So there's another photo of that. Some mock-ups we'll look at later. Under construction, we usually takes for a big sculpture like this, the three of us as well as 2 to 4 helpers. In this case, I think we had quite a big crew because we needed scissor lifts, the whole 9 yards for this one. Let's see, did I miss anything in here? Yeah, there's me putting last minute tuning on the sculpture. All these setups are wirelessly accessible, so I can just remote into the machine, sit with my laptop. You know, I kind of make it a tradition. You know, as soon as everything's up and everything's working and all the helpers wrap up, you know, I'll get a bottle and a paper bag, sip on a little drink, and just do some last minute touches, as well as watching people enjoy the art. We did, as well as art installations, we've had installations in the field up to about up to 3 weeks in the field. Some only a night or two, but some in the field for weeks. We have done one live performance. We did Tetra on top of a building for a special live streamed concert with with public disco. I'll just show you a bit of this here. I know there's no audio here, and this is quite a long video, so I'll just kind of skip to one of the more of the night parts. In this case, I was kind of VJing a bit with the Tetra sculpture, using some of the audio reactive functions, and yeah, sort of playing along with some fantastic musicians, and yeah, making a really unique visual piece, which was certainly worth the effort. Although it is a very non-trivial thing to hump all your equipment and all your power to the top of a building in the middle of Vancouver. Sorry, question from Darren. Could you talk a bit about the way you mapped looping with Tetra? Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. Yeah, I'll start with we're not going to be able to cover the entirety of the technology of Tetra within this 2-hour presentation, but I'll cover some broad strokes, and we'll I'll show you a couple examples, and if there's any questions, we could get to it later. First thing is that Tetra has been one code base from the very beginning, in that every installation uses the same big chunk of code that has been enhanced, nothing ever deleted from, for every installation. What this means is that a lot of the configuration of setting up a Tetra installation for an individual project is in a really big chunk of YAML files, configuration files. Tetra is written in Lupin, which is an open source framework of my own invention that yeah, I've used for several dozen projects over the years. It is largely equatable to something like Touch Designer, in that you know, it is about the flow of imagery through a very complicated definable rendering pipeline. However, unlike Touch Designer, there is absolutely no UI to it. There is nothing but big, yeah, a lot of code, a lot of YAML, and a lot of the effects are made with shader code. I can see some people are playing around with the control software. I'll just bring this onto screen here. By the way, I should mention that this is for internal use. This is for internal use only. There is you know, this is not designed for consumers or for audiences. This is something that is just designed for my own tuning. But it's been a big part of a lot of the artwork I've made. I found that there's multiple stages to things. First you need to set up. Chefs would call it a mise en place. our UI is the command console. Absolutely, maybe. Yeah. If you know, a good day of work is nothing but VS Code and terminal. You know, if yeah, UIs are for I don't know, for the web or something like that. Where was I? This software is designed for autonomous operation. So there is a cycle to it, where what we found is that when people are using a piece or not using, experiencing a piece of art or a piece of luminous sculpture in the field, it really should change its look totally about every minute. So I have here just a quick little timer where the patterns and the color of the piece cycle. Usually, yeah, about some portion of it changes every minute. The main challenge of building this code base and building this software, I found, was one of geometry. You know, first off, a lot of things are taking place in a tetrahedral coordinate system, which a lot of the time is like can be somewhat like a Cartesian XYZ coordinate space, except that the Y and Z are diagonal to where they would usually be, but there is a bit, there is a bit of a crossover there. Additionally, one of the challenges here was to be able to figure out the geometry of the tubes. Each of these tubes is in a DMX universe. So there is each tube is assigned to a certain location, but those locations are limited by how that they need each tube needs to be connected with to the next one. So I don't know if you ever did those puzzles in school where it's like, oh, can you draw this shape without one line crossing the other? Yeah, I did complicated versions of those professionally quite a bit. What happens in the system is to keep everything straight, it outputs a diagram, something like this. This is just for a single tetra, but we have pages and pages of these for some of the bigger sculptures, which actually was put me in a very strange situation very, very early on in the project, in that one of the first versions I had a system that would fill in the geometry, the DMX universes, and the connections of the tubes automatically using a not particularly intelligent AI. I didn't exactly verify the results of it beforehand. I just kind of printed up a lot of pages like this, about 6 pages, and started assembling the structure based off that. And I realized that the computer actually programmed me there, that it made up this whole thing and wrote out code, and then I followed the code. So it was a strange bit of role reversal there. The other thing that's helped us a lot in terms of the geometry of the piece is making an interface into the open source platform Blender, which aside from being a really useful tool to prototype to look at the geometry things, just really makes some very trippy, very cool real-time renders. So we
Eevee for these.
These what you're seeing is going to be like 80% Eevee. Yeah. This one, yeah, I think this is Eevee. No, you know how I could tell? I think with Eevee, I always turn on lens flare. This doesn't have lens flare. It's probably Cycles. Yeah, these were some initial mock-ups for the Bedtall for the public disco rooftop project. We had some ideas to do giant tetras, or actually putting the DJs inside a dodecahedron. I would still like to trap a person inside a dodecahedron at some point, you know, but we haven't got there just yet. That's the final. Yeah, this is the final geometry for that project here. Yeah, I could actually take patterns from the actual Tetra software and put them into the Blender renders for more, more realism. This was an early version of Smile, which I'll talk a bit about later. This is one that actually got a bit complicated before it got a bit simpler. This is a concept piece that we haven't put in the field yet. You know, with these things, there is always a balance of you know, how does it look, how unique does it look, and how hard would it be for a strong gust of wind to topple the whole thing over. This kind of lost out in that department, but maybe one of these days with a bit of guy wire. Some initial bits of just cubic testing. This was another piece that hasn't gone into the field just yet, where we were looking at covering some walls downtown and with a more permanent installation. Yeah, as Darren is saying, the Eevee is a really powerful tool for kind of both internally visualizing pieces of artwork, as well as being able to communicate concepts to clients. In, you know, what used to take us hours of rendering is now like a turnaround of a few minutes to make a tweak and render something out. These are some of Stuart's concepts for this would be called the Hfour. Some more concepts that haven't hit the field yet.
Hey, Sam,
Initial,
you
yeah,
run
but
any upper level like issues physically in terms of how big you could make the installation?
I I mean, without in terms of, we're looking at going up to 10 tall. We're looking at making it would end up being about a 40-foot tall Tetra pyramid. Just yeah, a tetrahedron. Just to go back into some of the arts, you know, this you know, this one's 5. I want to double this. I want to go to 10. I want to go to yeah, I want one of these years Burning Man to bring us down and make an absolutely enormous structure of Tetra tubes. So there are limits, but every time we find them, we defeat them. So no limits. And yeah, absolutely, dodecahedrons are on our roster there, Kenneth. Good call.
Nice.
Yeah, this was the future, according, and I honestly have way too much fun just you know, making crazy things, and then later they become real life. This is kind of funny. This is my own vaporwave version of Jim Diva Plaza. I know the trees aren't exactly the way they are in real life, and you know, the gardens don't glow green in real life, but everything's to scale otherwise. I find it's really useful to put a 3D model into of real person into these mock-ups to kind of give people a sense of scale to the thing. So yeah, Towel Girl was our model for a while. You know, she was our OG Tetra model. Here's another concept piece that hasn't happened yet, and just kind of doing a little bit of a fashion shoot with people and Tetras and yeah, lights and sounds. Oh, there's Vapor Deer. Vapor Deer sometimes gets in there for, again, a sense of scale, you know, in case any dromedaries show up to these kind of parties. Yeah, there's this was a mock-up of the TET 3B, I think we call this one. What we ended up doing was adding another tube in here. This is definitely one case where structural, in Blender, everything holds up under its own weight, but in real life, the thing was getting just a tiny bit rickety. So we added another tube in there, but there was still plenty of room for people to walk under and kind of be within the sculpture. As well as tetrahedrons, we are doing some other shapes. This was a proposal to make towers of Tetra. I can't remember what client was for. And to take the idea of people inside the structure further, we thought of building tunnels with Tetra. This one looked really fun. It looked really cool, but then we looked at how the heck are we going to manufacture that. Ended up going to the wayside. Again, another kind of shoot for the moon giant proposal. Some vaporwave aesthetics happening. Lots of glowing plants. Lots of light tubes. And yeah, at some point, May replaced Towel Girl as our main 3D generated model. She has that 1,000-yard stare and that really business binder. So yeah, she ended up getting the job. Are there any questions thus far? Anything people want to see a bit more of before we get into some of the code and internals? No, it's so weird in these presentations to like I could scroll over and see Tim sitting there, but everyone else is just a silent black box with maybe a thumbnail. It's
Yeah.
Cameras on?
No.
Mm?
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say I get this all the time with classes, and it's like trying to teach them some tech stuff, and then it's just like absolute silence. It's like, are you guys there? Are you on Facebook? What's going on?
Yeah. Oh, some people are tuning in, I'm sure. So the internally, everything in Tetra is done in Lupin framework with. So everything is a set of GPU buffers. I know that sounds like an odd way of putting it. I think a better way of putting it would be to say that within each of these tubes is 16 pixels, and each of those pixels is representable within a number of discrete dimensions. Let me just, for instance, that pixel I was looking at there is just probably one of those ones in that corner. Here we're looking at the actual LED output, or the output that is going straight to the DMX universes for the system. There's a lot of black space here because I'm only running three Tetras. Actually, let me switch that over to a different program. Just give me a second. Those of you mucking around, hooliganing the demo might need to reload unless it did so already. So I just switched the software over to the installation from. This is the metacode for the Smile sculpture, which used all 100 of our LED tubes, and you can see, different patterns represented that would look continuous on the actual tubes, just being represented as their raw DMX universes. Each of these exists within, again, a number of different coordinate systems that are all accessible within the GPU. For instance, this texture we're looking at here is the XYZ coordinates of the individual Tetra of the individual LEDs. You know, and have some utility bits in here. This is something that is just used to address, to kind of locate the tubes within space. And let me put this on Snaker here, because Snaker actually looks really fun.
Kenneth is asking, is it MIDI driven?
It is not MIDI driven. Not that it couldn't be, we just haven't had a need to build that yet. At some point, like we are in discussions with some musicians to make this part of their running set, but no, this current version doesn't have MIDI in there yet. Snaker is an interesting one in that, especially dimensionally, because what I tried to do here was to make a particle system that exists within these LED tubes, and looking at it mathematically, it's kind of a 1.5 dimensional particle system, in that a little blob of light might go up and down here, and then when it gets to the corner, make a decision as to which way to go from there. So that was a really fun little thing, especially to imagine each of these little lights is like a little pixie flowing through the DMX channels. Let's go. All of this is, oh, let me just go to, let's go to a different program. Oh, someone's hooligan my demo. What happened? Yeah, it's all good. Or is it? Well, that doesn't work. Move on. So yeah, I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, but there's about 10 different patterns that the system is capable of making. Dripper, and they all have like weird little names to them. Dripper, solidifier, wombler. You know, it's a recommendation I would make to anyone getting into the creative code arts: have a bunch of names on standby. Like you never want to be in a position where you're like, I just invented this thing in my head, but I have no idea what to name it. Just have a few things on standby. Worst case, call it Larry, Curly, or Mo, or find a naming convention to build things off of. Yeah, I was talking about patterns. Just to give you an example, this is a pattern called the Wombler, which is just taking my voice, taking an audio input. We can look at that audio as it steps through the system. It starts off as just a very low resolution buffer of sound pressure over time. It's slightly refined, kind of with some faux stereo and a bit of diffusion, and then it goes into the actual. It gets mapped in 3 dimensions to the actual tube data. Let me see if I can get the viewer working here.
So a follow question, Sam, is like, are each of the tubes numbered, and then are they laid out 2-dimensionally, like unwrapped, like, and then the light is projected based on the numbering sequence of the tubes? Is it like a matrix, basically?
It is a matrix. Each of them is represented in 2 dimensions. Then that 2-dimensional coordinate makes a lookup to a 3D coordinate that treats it in more of a volumetric space. For these for about half the effects. About half the effects are volumetric, and about half are based on the line geometry, which is kind of a 1.5 dimensional geometry, in that it just looks at them line by line, or tube by tube, rather than as individual pixels.
Got it.
So yeah, I was looking. What I find is a very useful technique is to represent patterns first in either a monochrome or a false color space, and then apply tinting to that. So here's what's going in to the tinter, and each individual pattern has its own tinter or color corrector that essentially makes up a lot of random colors. One of the through lines this whole thing is people like a lot of colors, and I really like the idea of mixing different color spaces and different palettes together. One thing I always like to do is think, that color there, there's some chance that no one has ever made that particular tint with an LED before. I'm not sure if I've covered the entire 24-bit space of LED colors, but I wouldn't doubt it for a second. Yeah, once these individual patterns are colorized, they go into a mixer that switches between patterns. And it's an interesting thing here this is all being rendered in the GPU. So because the resolutions are incredibly low compared to real screen imagery or games, like for instance, what we're looking at here is a 160 by 16 image. There is what is the Tetra? The Tetra is all the things, Kenneth. The Tetra is all the things. The Tetra is a sculpture from the future designed to make people happy with LEDs. You know, it's scientifically proven to enhance people's mood with patterns and colors.
Science.
Very cool.
Science. Thank you. You can see in so what I'm doing here is switching between different patterns. We we do kind of a wipe from one end of the thing to the other, and people tend to really, you get a lot of you do a lot of iteration based on what people like and what people enjoy, and when everything goes from the bottom to the top, or from the top to the bottom, people really like that. So that's that's the transition. However, it's just a way of covering switching between different patterns.
Also, Sam, did you find any interesting associations between colors and emotional states, like psychological stuff?
No, I haven't personally noticed or observed that as much as the texts would make it out. I think once you get into a space where things are glowing, rather than simply reflecting light, it's not as prevalent. When all rainbows, like I like to not actually go full rainbow, but take up maybe 270 degrees of a color wheel. People tend to really enjoy a mix of colors, and yeah, I think what brings the joy from it is less about the specific colors and more about creating geometry and color spaces and patterns that people just don't expect. So
there's a famous brand designer named Stefan Sagemeister, who he owns a famous ad agency called Sagemeister and Walsh down in the States, and he came up to Vancouver with a traveling exhibit called the Happiness Exhibit, and the whole exhibit was basically all the different things that people do to find happiness and to search for happiness. And the whole exhibit was yellow because psychologically yellow is the most closely associated with the feeling of happiness, like overall sense of well-being. So it's interesting how he kind of approached that. I'm curious what your team found when you created sort of that happiness installation at the Davian Butte location.
Yeah, that one, and I'll just go back to a few pictures of that. Yeah, I think to me it is, what part of the happiness quotient of this was about movement, and as well as just being completely surrounded by unexpected light. is what I think built the happiness here. Like, I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of like colors of paint, colors that are reflecting things. Like, I think have more of an effect on mood. But like, we think of blue as being kind of a downer color, but when you look at glowing blue from a light, I think it's a different effect than like a blue paint, for instance.
Oh, interesting. Kenneth, you just said the illegal shade of pink supposedly reduces aggression. That's interesting. Why do you say it's illegal?
Yeah.
That's just what I heard on the internet, but it was like a TikTok that was going around for a little while, about a month ago, where they showed these different places where they painted it this shade of pink, and then they produced empirical data to show that people were less likely to get into fights, to basically to be gentler with one another. And they would even go so far as like they would paint the opponent's team room, their locker room for like a sports team. They would paint it that color. They would paint certain holding cells this color, So I was just curious what sort of, if you had came across that or anything. But you also mentioned that it's not necessarily about reflecting light, but projecting light, or the fact that it's glowing and there's an ambiance versus photons reflecting, and you either perceive them or you don't.
Yeah. I would absolutely love to be able to replicate that particular pink. On the other hand, I find replicating colors with LEDs to kind of almost be sort of a lost cause, in that you could put hex codes and exact colors to these things, but there's no real color matching to it. The gamuts are all over the place, so if I were to find that pink, it would be by experimentation. I'll have to find a bunch of like really aggressive people and just like surround them with light and like okay, you just tweak some RGB sliders. Are you chill yet? Are you chill yet? Are you chill yet? Are you chill yet? That would be an interesting scientific experiment. I would like to try that at some point. But Kenneth, if you have a hex code for that calming pink, please let me know.
Yeah, I think the other thing with like specific colors that we're always taught when it comes to design, at least, is you have to be kind of careful about color associations, because those are culturally based, and other cultures will have different associations for colors. So you can't really rely on like, yellow equals happy, or like pink equals chill, because that might mean a different thing to a different person.
Yeah, we think of red being kind of aggressions and things, but I see where you're coming from. In some places it's lucky and powerful. Okay, where was I in what I possibly have as a script? I'd like to mention at this point that all the patterns within this are completely generated in real time. There's no video playback. There's no baked playback. I really like to think that with all the chaotic elements going into an individual Tetra installation or pattern, that that it really never does the same thing twice. You know, everything is a confluence of several layers and a lot of random random patterns. So they're yeah, every particular frame is unique, never to be replicated again. So I know there's a lot of things in here. There's a lot of things in the demo we could look at. We're kind of, I'd like to leave some more room for questions. So if there's anything specific that you guys would like to go back and take a look at, let me know. Now would be the time. Otherwise, we'll move on to the future and the lessons learned from the script. F and chat, we all good? All right. So yeah, it's been 2 years and a dozen installations, and we're still rolling with this. This year, we're starting a new brand for just for Tetra installations. All things will henceforth be hopefully known as Delightful Future Technology. One thing that we found in last few installations with the future, according or as promised by virtual reality and Smile, is that we'd like to put more of a narrative to individual pieces with the future. Let me just bring that back up. You know, the narrative was one of a retro-futuristic at a virtual reality simulation that was teleported into real reality through the power of delightful science. And with Smile, we took the idea of narrative quite a few steps further and looked at this machine as a large-scale electrical component to transform anxiety into happiness in a turbulent year, and we accompanied that with a lot of tongue-in-cheek diagrams with specification sheets, and I think that really enhanced people's mood as much as any individual color would, to have a bit more of a story to things. So we're taking that a step further and building a narrative around not just a single piece, but a series of pieces where again, we are bringing things from the future to the present to bring happiness and to make the world a better place. Also looking into, this year, we're going to be building some new geometries with Tetra. We're moving into icosahedrons, dodecahedrons, making things bigger, making things better. And as if I don't have enough things to do this year, pushing more of this stuff into the open source space. I'm working with a couple Davids that are watching right now, and building some simpler things than this, but things where if you want to make code and you want to make code control LEDs in crazy ways that no one has ever seen before, we're going to have a GitHub project that's easy to use, that's documented, that's ready to go, that you could use as a starting point for that. So yeah, the future looks bright for delightful future technologies. Just to wrap up, I want to go into a couple lessons that I've learned through this project. First is that people really like LEDs and glowing patterns, and there is, we joke about it being total real science, but I can see it in people's eyes that when you have the right colors, when you have a chill flow to things, it puts a smile on people's faces. And that's a worthwhile goal. If you're building your own art projects, stay flexible and stay orthogonal. If you're building something and you got one thing here, like, don't build another thing here. Like, build a thing that goes at that first thing a bit sideways. Like, when you have a bunch of things that start from a common spot and all work together, that's where a lot of real creativity comes out. Similarly, if this is more in concern with code, if you're building something, and you have the time, don't just build that thing. Build the bigger thing where the first thing is just a subset of the thing, and there you could find possibilities that you never knew were possible when you began. So I know there is madness there, but if you have the time, build a system that runs a system rather than just building the system itself. In a bit of more practical advice, and I can see this on my screen right now. If you're making LED light, you always want to have some fill light on people's faces. You can't really rely on LEDs that you want to be photographed to light subjects as well. I don't have any pictures of this specific thing, but one thing we've started doing with these installations is having RGB spotlights kind of lighting the audiences so that their exposure photographically matches with the light coming from the actual tubes. A big thing that's helped me along the way is the ability to tune and live code things. Like when I'm making patterns for Tetra, I'm usually directly editing a shader, and as soon as I hit Apple S, a second later, I can see the effect either on the screen or on the tubes. And to me, that's an incredibly important part of making visual code or creative code, is to keep a very tight feedback loop. You want to be able to make a change and see the result of that change ideally within less than 3 seconds, and having a continual iteration of things is where the real power of creativity comes from. One of the we've had a real opportunity with this system to put it in the field a number of times, and there is a real power, I think, in iteration. I mean, a lot of things you can, some things you can do very well by planning, and then doing. But the most effective way that I've found to create something good is to do it once and see what you learned, and then do it again and again and again, and cut some things, add some new things, but really make creativity an iterative process. So yeah, with that said, all those out in the internet world, keep iterating, keep learning, and keep creating awesome things. That's what I'll be doing here. Cheers, and are there any questions?
Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
Hey, I had one. If no one else has one.
Of course.
So unfortunately, I missed the first hour or so of the presentation. But is the Tetra system intended to be modular, or would I need to consider purchasing all of the pieces at one time?
We don't really have a system that is for sale right now. Like there's a big difference between a system that works for us and a system that I can put in a shrink wrap box and sell. But parts of it are definitely modular, and I'd encourage you to just draw up my email in chat to contact me at another time, and yeah, we can talk about building something for you if you need. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm sort of familiar on the LED side. I've built my own like buck converter, or are you familiar with a jewel thief?
Yep.
Yeah, so I've built out jewel thieves before, and I definitely like. I know that there's more to color just simply than the RGB values or hex values that we happen to see. So I'm curious about this system, but yeah, I just don't know what I would be able to experiment with now, versus what I would need to do on my own, that sort of thing.
So I have something that like are you a Raspberry Pi guy, or do you know kind of you into something like that?
Yeah, I've got Pis, and yeah.
I'm working on something right now that's an open source kind of LED programmatic control starter pack that that might be of interest to you. The Cleveland lighting controller. We're not exactly ready to put it out on publicly yet, but within the next month, that's going to be coming down the pipe. So yeah, if you're on the Vancouver Creative Tech Slack, watch for an announcement there. That would be the system for you, I think. It's a way for people to get started with programmatic LEDs, and it's not going to have all the stuff that Tetra does, which is probably a good thing, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of code. And, the reason I don't put something like Tetra out as open source is not so much about secret sauces or anything, just the fact that it's I think too much for anyone but a very dedicated person to really parse. But yeah, within the next couple months, we're going to be dropping the Cleveland lighting controller, and that's the thing I think could help you out a lot. Does that answer your question, Kenneth?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out after this, just to connect and to get some more info. But yeah, I'm definitely into this idea. And I'd also asked about MIDI, more so from a control aspect, not necessarily from like, integrating with my music or my keyboards or what have you, but as like a way I'm guessing to like map traditional like lighting controllers to either your software or your system.
So yeah, there's a few steps along that way. Like the on kind of one end is the actual hardware, and then there's a controller between the LEDs and the computer. Then there's the computer doing its stuff, doing its patterns, and there's controls on top of that. I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of MIDI control. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at the demo I put, but this I found has been a really powerful part of everything. A lot of installations I've done that you need to have a bunch of sliders. Like, let me just bring up the page right here. Just having all kinds of sliders, some of them unlabeled, something where you can get into a space where you're tuning a thing, rather than coding it. Like that doesn't need to be, I think, actual MIDI, but having these kind of MIDI style sliders to it is an incredibly important thing.
What's the hardware interface for this? Like, what's actually sending the DMX?
Inside, let me see if inside. I got the controller box here. I can show you. Oh, it's kind of in the dark down there. That inside is a 16-channel ArtNet to DMX converter. Connect it to a dedicated USB Ethernet interface that is connected to the machine running it. ArtNet to DMX 16 channel is the controller there.
Sweet.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay. Thanks so much, Sam. That was awesome. And
well, thank you guys for joining me on this strange journey here.
Before we sign off, where can people follow you and this project?
Follow me. I've been working on a new version of my webpage for probably about 8 years now. But get me at sam.z.cooper on the Instagram. Would be the best place to follow my work and stuff I'm doing.
Sweet. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, I don't know what we have in the pipe for next month yet, and if we have anything planned, but we'll hit the Slack when we figure out what's coming next month.
Sounds good.
Okay, look forward to it.
Cheers, everyone.